In Season 19, Episode 4, every choice, every look, every secret carries more weight than ever before. Because sometimes home isn't just a place you live, it's the place that tests who you really are. For almost 2 decades, Heartland has been more than a TV show, it's been a home for millions of hearts. A story about love, family, and the bond between people and horses that never fades, no matter how rough life gets. Now, in Season 19, the story continues to unfold under the endless Alberta sky. But this time, the stakes feel higher, the emotions deeper, and the lessons harder to learn. Episode 4 opens with a sense of quiet, the kind of calm that hides a storm beneath it. The sun rises over the ranch, painting the barn in soft orange light. Amy walks out early, her breath visible in the cool morning air. She stops by Spartan's stall, her hand resting gently on his mane, her eyes filled with unspoken thoughts. She's thinking about the choices she's made, and the ones she still has to face. There's peace in her touch, but worry in her heart. Jack, the pillar of the Heartland family, stands nearby, watching her with that mix of pride and concern only a grandfather can carry. He knows that every person at Heartland carries their own battles, and Amy's are no exception. He's seen this land heal broken spirits before, but he also knows healing doesn't come easy. Across the ranch, Lou is on the phone, her voice filled with frustration. She's been trying to balance it all, being a mother, a mayor, a businesswoman, and lately, the weight is catching up to her. She loves her family deeply, but she's starting to wonder if her dreams have drifted too far from the place she calls home. Her tone softens as she looks out the window at the fields she grew up in, remembering the days when life was simpler, when home was enough. Meanwhile, Katie, Lou's daughter, is growing into her own. In this episode, we see her take a bold step, one that surprises everyone. It's a moment that reminds us that growing up at Heartland means learning to be brave, even when the world feels uncertain. Then there's Tim, never one to stay out of trouble for long. He's caught between pride and regret, trying to make peace with his past while pushing forward. There's tension in his words, a quiet pain that lingers when he looks back on the choices he made as a father. But despite everything, his loyalty to his family never fades. Even when they disagree, even when the past still stings, the ties that bind them keep pulling him home. Episode 4 brings all these threads together. It's a story about choices, the ones that shape us and the ones that haunt us. The air at Heartland feels different this week. Something is building, an emotional turning point that will test the strength of every character. And as the camera pans over the wide open plains, we can almost feel it, the mix of beauty, struggle, and hope that defines every moment of this show. In the background, soft piano music plays, familiar yet slightly melancholic. It's the sound of Heartland itself, gentle, grounded, full of feeling. And in that sound, you can hear what's coming. Change, growth, maybe even heartbreak. But above all, love, the kind that endures through storms and seasons alike. Because Heartland isn't just about horses or family. It's about finding your place in a world that keeps moving, about holding on to what matters even when it's hard. Episode 4 doesn't shout, it whispers. But those whispers carry meaning. They remind us that every sunrise brings another chance to make things right. And as Amy walks toward the rising sun, her figure outlined against the sky, one thought lingers in her heart and ours. Sometimes healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning to move forward, even when it still hurts. The sky over Heartland is painted in soft gray, the kind of morning that feels heavy with meaning. There's a quiet before life begins to move again. Horses stir in the paddocks, the air smells like fresh hay and rain, and deep inside the barn, Amy Fleming is fighting an inner storm no one else can see. This episode dives deeper into her heart than ever before. After years of helping others heal, Amy faces something she can't fix with a gentle hand or a soft whisper. A horse has arrived at the ranch, wild, tense, eyes filled with fear. It mirrors everything she's been trying to hide. The animal's spirit feels broken, its trust shattered. But as Amy reaches out, we realize she's not just trying to save the horse. She's trying to save a part of herself. She knows what it feels like to be afraid of moving forward, afraid of letting go of the past. Every time she speaks to that horse, every calm breath she takes, It's as if she's reminding herself how to heal. This is where Heartland shines, not in loud drama, but in the quiet moments where emotion speaks louder than words. Meanwhile, Lou's story takes its own turn. Between meetings, phone calls, and endless responsibilities, she's begun to lose sight of why she started any of it. Her career, her drive, her passion all seem to pull her away from the ranch she once promised never to forget. In one scene, she returns home late at night, exhausted. The lights of the house are dim, the air still. She sits on the porch, her hands trembling slightly as she exhales. For a long moment, she just listens to the crickets, the wind, the faint sound of horses breathing. And it's in that silence that she remembers what peace feels like. The next morning, Lou helps Amy in the barn, not saying much, just being there. The two sisters share one of those unspoken Heartland moments, where everything important is said through a glance. Lou brushes down a horse, Amy tightens a saddle strap, and for a few seconds, they are not mayor or trainer, not businesswoman or caretaker. They're just two sisters, trying to hold their worlds together. Elsewhere, Jack notices the change in the air. He's lived long enough to know when something's about to shift. Sitting by the fireplace, coffee in hand, he reflects on the years, on what they've lost and what they've built. He's the soul of Heartland, and even when everyone else seems lost, he remains grounded. In episode 4, Jack becomes the quiet voice of wisdom, the steady heartbeat that reminds everyone what really matters. There's a small but powerful scene where Jack visits Tim in the stable. The two men, both stubborn, both scarred by the past, exchange few words. Yet there's a sense of mutual respect and pain between them. Tim tries to joke, to hide behind his usual bravado, but Jack sees through it. He tells him softly, "Sometimes the hardest part of being strong is knowing when to stop fighting." It's one of those lines that lands deep, not just for Tim, but for every viewer who's ever carried their own burden too long. Katie's subplot brings a touch of light to the heaviness. She's growing, finding her voice, and in episode 4, she takes a small but brave step toward independence. It's a reminder of how every generation at Heartland learns to rise, not by following the old paths, but by finding new ones. Her storyline ties beautifully with the show's larger message, that love isn't about holding on too tight, but about letting others become who they're meant to be. Throughout this section of the episode, the camera captures the breathtaking Alberta landscape, vast skies, rolling hills, the timeless beauty of open fields. But those images are more than scenery. They're a reflection of what the characters feel inside. The land itself becomes a mirror of emotion, wild, free, unpredictable, and full of quiet healing. By the end of this act, we sense a turning point. The horse Amy's been working with takes its first calm step toward her, a fragile moment of trust. Lou decides to take a day off to stay at the ranch, realizing that maybe success isn't always measured in meetings and phone calls. Jack smiles faintly, knowing that sometimes life doesn't need fixing, it just needs time. The episode reminds us of something simple yet profound. Healing doesn't happen in a rush. It happens in small steps: a hand on a mane, a deep breath before sunrise, a soft word said when no one's listening. And in those small moments, we see why Heartland has lasted this long, because it tells the truth about how people really grow. As the music swells and the camera pulls back to show the ranch glowing under the evening light, one thing becomes clear: this isn't just another episode. It's a reflection of life itself, imperfect, tender, and endlessly hopeful. The wind picks up across the valley as the evening sun sinks low, painting Heartland in shades of gold and fire. There's a stillness that feels alive, like the land itself is waiting for something to happen. Then, slowly, the story begins to move again. Episode 4 opens its heart wider, revealing moments that are raw, tender, and unforgettable. This is where the quiet emotions of the last episode begin to find their voice. Amy stands in the training ring, her face calm but her eyes full of determination. The horse she's been working with, the wild one that mirrored her own struggle, paces in the circle, restless and unsure. The tension between them is thick, not born from fear but from recognition. Both are learning to trust again. The camera lingers on Amy's hand, steady, patient, open the same hands that have healed countless broken spirits. She doesn't speak. She simply breathes, grounding herself in the silence. Slowly, the horse stops pacing. Their eyes meet. It's not victory, it's connection. That single moment, fragile and wordless, becomes the emotional heartbeat of the episode. Then, the tone shifts. Lou's world comes rushing in again, meetings, promises, and plans that never end. But in episode 4, something inside her changes. She starts to realize that her need to be everywhere has kept her from being here. The story gives us a glimpse into her private struggle when she receives a call offering her a big opportunity, something that could pull her further away from the ranch. Her eyes flicker with conflict. She wants to grow, to build, but she's terrified of what she might lose in the process. In the background, the faint sound of laughter drifts from the barn, and her face softens. For a brief second, we see Lou not as a leader, not as a politician, but as a daughter who still longs for home. Across the ranch, Jack and Tim find themselves working side by side fixing a broken fence, the perfect metaphor for their relationship. Every hammer strike feels like a conversation they've been avoiding for years. Jack's silence speaks more than words, and Tim, for once, doesn't argue. There's a quiet moment where Tim pauses and says, "You ever think we build fences between people the same way we built them around this place?" Jack doesn't answer right away. He just looks at the horizon and replies, "Yeah, and maybe it's time we took a few down." It's a line that stays with you, simple, honest, deeply human. Meanwhile, Katie's story adds a spark of youth and courage. She's learning to see Heartland not just as the place she grew up, but as the world she wants to shape. In this episode, she stands up for something she believes in, an idea about helping a struggling horse find a home. The adults around her doubted at first, but she doesn't back down. When she finally convinces them to try her way, we see a reflection of Amy's younger self in her, brave, compassionate, unafraid to speak from the heart. It's a small story in the grand scheme, but it carries the timeless message Heartland has always stood for. Kindness is never wasted. The middle of the episode carries one of the most striking visual sequences of the season so far. A storm rolls across the prairie, thunder echoing through the valley, lightning splitting the sky. The ranch becomes a flurry of motion, horses restless, rain pounding on the roof, everyone rushing to protect what they love. In the chaos, the wild horse breaks loose, and Amy runs into the storm after it. The scene unfolds with cinematic beauty, her silhouette against the rain, her voice calling out through the wind, her fear mixing with courage. She finally finds the horse by the river, trembling and lost. Kneeling in the mud, Amy speaks softly, her words barely audible over the thunder. "You're safe now." We both are. It's not just about the animal, it's about her. It's about every time she's been afraid to trust again, and every time she's chosen to try anyway. As the storm fades, the ranch glows under a cold, wet dawn. Everything feels changed, not in a dramatic, explosive way, but in the quiet way that life always changes. Lou returns from town and sees Amy sitting by the fence, soaked but smiling. There's a peace between them, unspoken but strong. Jack steps out onto the porch, coffee in hand, and looks at his family, tired, muddy, but together. He doesn't say much, just nods. That small gesture carries more weight than any speech could. Later, we get one final glimpse into the emotional undercurrent of the episode. Amy walks the wild horse, now calm, across the field. The camera pulls back to show the ranch bathed in early sunlight. Lou and Katie laugh softly in the distance. Tim and Jack share a rare, genuine moment of ease. Everything feels fragile yet full, like life itself. The narrator's voice returns, low and steady. At Heartland, every storm leaves something behind, not just broken fences or muddy boots, but lessons. The kind that stay with you long after the clouds are gone. This is the beauty of episode 4. It's not about big twists or loud drama. It's about the small moments that feel real, the glance between sisters, the quiet forgiveness between old friends, the soft touch between a girl and her horse. It's about people who keep choosing love even when life gives them every reason not to. As the screen fades to the Heartland logo and the gentle theme music begins, we're left with a sense of warmth and reflection. This episode reminds us that no matter how far we go, no matter how much we change, there's always a place and a feeling that calls us home, because at Heartland, healing doesn't come from running away from the pain. It comes from facing it together. The storm has passed, but its echo still lingers in the air, a soft hum that blends with the whisper of the wind and the steady rhythm of hooves in the distance. Heartland stands calm again, the land washed clean, the sky wide and forgiving. The morning sun breaks through the clouds, turning the wet fields into mirrors of light. It's more than a new day, it's a quiet promise that life always finds a way to begin again. Amy walks across the ranch yard, her boots leaving light prints in the damp earth. Spartan follows close behind, steady and loyal. She stops for a moment, taking in the view the fences, the hills, the wide open fields that hold every memory she's ever made. Her face softens, and for the first time in a long while, she looks at peace. The wild horse she saved now grazes calmly nearby, no longer restless, no longer afraid. It's a symbol of what Heartland has always stood for, that even the most broken souls can learn to trust again. Inside the house, Lou is at the kitchen table sipping coffee, her hair still messy from the long night before. The phone buzzes with messages, business calls, meetings, schedules, but she doesn't reach for it. Instead, she looks out the window and watches Amy walk through the morning mist. A faint smile crosses her face. In that silence, she makes a quiet decision to slow down, to be present, to find balance between ambition and belonging. She realizes something she's known all along but had forgotten in the rush, that no matter where she goes, her roots will always be here, in the soil of Heartland. Jack enters, his worn hat in hand, and sits across from her. No words at first, just the soft sound of the coffee pouring into his cup. He looks at Lou with that steady, grounding calm only he can bring. "You don't have to have it all figured out," he says softly. "Sometimes you just have to keep showing up. It's not advice, it's truth. The kind that comes from a life lived through storms and sunshine alike." Lou nods, the weight lifting just a little. Tim walks in next, holding a damp jacket and pretending not to notice the warmth in the room. There's a small spark of humor as Jack teases him about the fence still needing repairs, and for the first time in a long time, they all share a laugh. It's not loud or forced, it's real. The kind of laughter that fills the space between people who have seen each other at their worst and still choose to stay. Outside, Katie is brushing one of the horses, humming to herself. She glances up at the sky, where the clouds are drifting apart, and you can see in her eyes the next generation of Heartland, curious, strong, full of hope. The episode captures this moment beautifully, the sense that life is always moving forward, one small act of love at a time. As the day unfolds, the camera follows each character through their small moments of quiet growth. Amy helps a neighbor's child ride for the first time. Lou plants flowers near the porch, her hands dirty but her heart light. Jack sits on the porch steps, watching the horizon with that wise, gentle expression that has anchored the show for years. And Tim, standing near the paddock, simply looks around and smiles, the faint smile of a man who finally understands that peace isn't something you chase. It's something you find when you stop running. Then, as the sun begins to set, the golden light returns, soft, forgiving, endless. The horses graze peacefully, the ranch hums with life, and the soundtrack rises in the background. Slow, emotional, filled with warmth. The narrator's voice returns one last time, steady and heartfelt. At Heartland, every ending is just another beginning. Every storm leaves behind clearer skies, and every heart, no matter how broken, can find its way back home. The camera pans upward, revealing the ranch bathed in evening glow. The barn lights flicker on, and smoke drifts gently from the chimney. You can almost feel the calm. The voice continues. For 19 seasons, this land has held the laughter, the loss, and the love of a family who never stopped believing in second chances. And in episode 4, that belief feels stronger than ever. Because here, healing doesn't happen overnight. It happens through love, through patience, through home. A soft instrumental version of the Heartland theme begins to play, familiar, nostalgic, and full of emotion. It blends perfectly with the images on screen. Amy leading the wild horse to its new pasture, Lou watching her family through the window, Jack sitting quietly with Spartan nearby. Every shot feels like a memory, tender, fleeting, and timeless. Then, just before the fade out, we see one final image. Amy standing at the fence, looking out at the sunset. Her voice breaks the silence, gentle and sincere. No matter what happens, no matter how far we go, this place, this feeling, it always brings us back. The screen fades to black. The Heartland logo appears simple, elegant, glowing softly against the dark, and the final voiceover, warm and inviting, closes the episode's first look. Don't miss Heartland Season 19, Episode 4 this Sunday on CBC. Because sometimes home isn't where the story ends. It's where it begins again. The music swells one last time, then fades into the sound of wind over the fields. The sense of calm lingers, as if the story isn't just ending, it's continuing quietly in the hearts of everyone watching, because that's what Heartland is best. It doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. It reminds us that even after 19 seasons, there's still beauty in the small moments.